Hey, thanks for coming on, Liam.
Thanks for having me,
Liam
Andrew.
Richichi, right?
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but yeah, it's
Okay,
Richichi.
you're sort of an up-and-comer.
I'm trying. I moved out here my freshman year at MSU, and I knew that I wanted to get involved in politics and local organizing. And
Just graduated from Michigan State University in May of 2025.
yes, that's correct.
You were James Madison.
James Madison, political theory. Yep.
Yeah, I was in James Madison.
Where'd you graduate in?
Well, I didn't graduate from James Madison because I wrote a paper and the prof read it, and he said there's no room for sarcasm at Michigan State University, at James Madison. And I went and met with the prof, and after the meeting, I got the book out, and I went through the whole book and decided I was going to transfer to finance. So I was only in James Madison for 1 year.
Okay. Yeah, it's. I think it's changed a little bit since then, thankfully.
That would have been 1983. My daughter graduated from Madison, though.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I feel like everybody that's in pre-law political theory, like that's James Madison
Right.
is the thing out here.
But you grew up in Northville.
Yes, so from Northville originally and graduated from Northville High School.
Born in Michigan.
Yes, haven't left my whole life.
Right. That's what I say about Lansing. I haven't left my whole life.
Oh, wow.
And Northville, 20-some years ago, 21, 22 years ago, was kind of a small, quaint town.
Mm-hmm.
I had cases down there, and there was the one Main Street, and I was just at Meadowbrook a couple weeks ago, and man, there's a lot of development.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, a lot of development. They got the streets that are closed down there, although that landed them in some trouble. But they're working on that right now. But yeah, since like the last, I'd say probably 8 or 9 years, they've really been growing down there. Mayor Turnbull is great. He was elected a couple years ago and is really development focused down there.
And you went to Northville High.
Yep, graduated in 21.
Kind of as I sort of understand it, for most of your life, you were sort of just a only child, right?
Yeah, until I was about 12.
And then you have some siblings now, 3 sisters.
Yeah, so 3 little siblings, 12, 11, and 9, all half siblings from remarriages. So
Yeah. So then, academically, how'd you do in high school?
good. I tried to stay out of trouble as much as possible. My mom instilled in me to try to do that. She ran away from home when she was 16, so it was big for her that I kind of really stayed on a good track. I took AP classes, was a National Honor Society, kept up a good GPA even through COVID because my junior and senior year was lockdown. So that was, interesting to say the least.
Hard to imagine that, somebody who runs away from home, how far did she go?
She lived in Toledo for a couple years, and then she moved back up here when she got pregnant with me.
So she was from the Northville area?
She's from Ypsi, Belleville, Ypsi area.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be from Ypsi.
No.
and
Loved by
then
people from
goes
Ypsi.
to Toledo, which is a big deal at 16, and gets pregnant and comes back to
Yep.
Northville area. And
Came back here when she had me when she was 21. So she came back here, reconnected with her parents, and tried to make a life out here and wanted all the best for me. So she was a server for 15 years, went to cosmetology school, and eventually opened her own business. And now she's a successful salon owner.
salon owners can make really good money.
Yeah. Yep, they do, especially when you got like the chair rental. She's got like 3 stylists in there. She's got all different services, all that stuff. So it's good product.
Good for her. It's sort of be good grounding for you.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, someone who didn't even fully graduate high school before she ran away, and all the steps that she's made since then to be so successful. And she kind of instilled that same strong head mentality to try to persevere through whatever challenges that you're going through, regardless.
I always love hiring servers.
Yeah, they're great.
At the law firm, because although, substantively they may not have an interest in the law, they're always hard workers and they're always sort of money driven, which is hard to teach somebody in college, how important. There's an economics to everything.
Yeah, and they're really good at time management. I actually serve still 1 day a week. I do it just because I think it's, there's so many coworkers there. I've worked there for 5 years. I love it.
Where do you do that?
Texas Roadhouse, actually,
there you
in
go.
Lansing. Yeah. So I worked there for 5 years, and it's good spending money.
Malik Hall's girlfriend worked there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I tried to hire her next door, but she wouldn't have it. It was too good of money.
Yeah, it is good money. It's fast paced and it's high bills, so that's what you need.
So you're in Northville. You're not playing sports,
No.
right?
Nope.
Graduate when?
Graduated in 21, and I was in the
No, graduated from high school.
Yeah, 2021.
Oh my God.
I know, right?
Wow. And you're in the band.
Yes, I was in the symphonic and marching band for all 4 years.
Okay. And what? Tell me what you played.
So I was trumpet. So I was
there you go.
first chair for a couple of years, and then I was the assistant drum major my senior year. So that was a big deal. We were doing band camp every summer, 3 weeks on the blacktop from 8 to 5 every day.
So it's a lifetime skill, though, right? You'll always be able to play the trumpet.
Oh
or
yeah.
not?
Yep. I have it in my room. I play it from time to time still.
Really?
It's fun.
Can you sing too?
No,
No.
not at all.
So you come to Michigan State.
Yeah.
And you get into James Madison, right?
Yep.
And you designate that right out of the box, right?
I did. Yeah, I did. I applied for James Madison on my application into college.
And why would you do that? Like, what would be the interest? Your mom's not in politics. Your dad's not in politics, right?
Yeah, I mean, my family is very apolitical, I would say, actually. But, I kind of got my start because I was encouraged by a friend to start attending our local Democratic Club meetings. So I started that. And
in Northville?
In Northville, yep. So I met a bunch of folks there. It was a really welcoming community. It just felt cool to be part of like a political process that was kind of atypical for me.
And how old were you then?
I was 15 at that point.
So how'd you get to the meetings?
I walked. It was right down the street from my house because I lived downtown. So it was at Mill Race, which was about a half a mile from my house. So just walked there. Mm-hmm. My mom wasn't thrilled, but
a bunch of adults and a 15-year-old.
Yeah, there was a couple of other like high schoolers.
You probably looked like 12 at the time, right?
Oh yeah, no. When I walked in there, the whiplash of everybody throwing their head, I was like, oh, okay.
Energy. All campaigns need energy.
Yeah.
So if you have energy, that's good.
Once I found that being the youngest person in the room in politics, though, is actually really exciting because people are excited that you're there.
Right.
And they look to you to feel out what young people are feeling and how to get them involved and engaged.
So you're studying, you're in the band, and you decide, a third endeavor. Are you working in high school at all?
Yeah, so I was working part-time. I was doing carry out at a restaurant, so I was doing to go. Yeah.
Meaning like the Jimmy John's guy that delivers the sandwiches? Or
Not quite. I didn't have a car yet, so I couldn't do that.
But they do it on bikes.
They do, not me.
No, so tell me what the carry out is.
So basically, like, you go to a restaurant, you want to order like carry out. You call them on the phone and you're like, oh, I want to place this order. I'm the one that like packaged all that up, took it out.
The to-go.
Yeah. So did that. And then that's when I decided I'd also get involved in politics too, which was my first internship working for a congressional campaign, Haley Stevens.
Okay. And tell me where she ran.
So her old district was the 11th Congressional District, which was Northville, Novi, Metro Detroit, basically. And it was the most competitive race in America at that time.
Who'd she run against?
Erica Saki was in 2020. And then I came back in 22 as staff.
Did she win?
She did. Yeah, that was her second term.
Okay.
But it was an R plus.
Tell me, historically, when did Benson and Nessel and Gretchen first win? Was it 18?
It was 18, yeah. 18 was the first
So that
time.
was sort of the big woman movement, and then Haley Stevens wins in 20?
She won at 18, actually, her first time.
Oh, okay.
So she was part of that women wave, which was, pretty crazy time, to be honest, just because there were so many like great women that got elected up and down the ballot that weren't in office before, that were predominantly held by men. So it was kind of interesting to see, more diversity and more inclusiveness in all of those like high level roles. But yeah, 2020 was the first.
So she was an incumbent when you worked on her campaign.
Yes, that was her first re-election campaign. So
what did you do?
So I came on as an intern, and then I ended up coming on as staff towards the end of the cycle. So I led 30 interns. I was like the intern leader. So there was 15 finance and 15 field interns. So I led both of those programs.
So being an intern though only means whether you're getting paid or not, right?
I was getting a small stipend,
but it doesn't really distinguish what you might be doing. I mean, in a campaign, you never have enough resources or people, right?
Yep.
So when you were interning or when you were on staff, tell me what you actually did.
Yeah, so when I was an intern the first time around, what I did was basically I led the volunteer program, help produce the volunteer program. So that's making sure we have volunteers knocking doors, making phone calls. I helped put together the donor lists for Haley Stevens, so help put those together. So she would call those people, do her call time, ask for money. Do the research on them. That's basically just like stalking them, going through their social media, LinkedIn, figuring out what their profession is, what their interests are. And I kind of carried that over again into 2022 when I came back as full-time staff. And I took that on a higher role. So I was the assistant call time manager. So I helped with doing her call time, her fundraising. I was more so on that side.
And she's still representing the district, right?
Yeah, she has after 22 was the redistricting. So the district is different now. It's more north. So she's got Pontiac, Birmingham, Royal Oak area. But she is, still congressional rep, and then she's running for Senate. So
perfect.
Yeah.
And you come up to Michigan State, and so you have this background, right? High school, part of the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Decide
to come to James Madison, which is at Michigan State, right? Which is a natural fit.
Yep.
Right? You're probably if you're into politics and policy, that's the perfect place to be, right?
100%.
Lived in Case Hall.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of unique, I think, and it's
unique's a word,
and its design. I mean, it hasn't changed much since I've been there, other than the cafeteria, right?
Yeah, cafeteria actually isn't bad. It's kind of the focal point of South neighborhood, so a lot of people go there.
Right, and tell me what that experience was like.
I mean, to be honest, I think as much as I am slamming the dorms right now, I do think that it's really an amazing experience. I think everybody should live in the dorms at least their first year, just because it's a really immersive experience. You meet so many people, even though it was still kind of like the tail end of COVID and we had to have our masks in the hallways and everything. We had like an open door policy. So we'd like let people come in, we would chat, and that was kind of how I made a lot of the friends that I have today.
And talk about things. A lot of people, it's almost like pre-law, right? Most people go to law school after James Madison.
Yeah, my major in particular, political theory, that's like the pre-law fast track, because the other ones are a little bit more policy related or like international relations. Right. So like political theory is kind of like the foundational, documents to where law kind of picks up. But personally for me, like, I'm not ruling out law school. Maybe eventually I'll do that. But I think with the way that my career is going right now, I'm just going to kind of ride this wave and see where it takes me.
Right. And so you're at Michigan State, which for many is a full-time job.
Yep.
You're studying, right? A lot of reading and writing at James Madison, right?
A lot.
A lot more than there aren't a lot of Cliff Note classes you can take at James Madison, are there?
No, I'm not going to lie, though. I did use Cliff Notes quite a few times.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. And so you just get involved in politics here in East Lansing?
Yeah. So basically, my freshman year at MSU was when that was 22. So that was when I was staff for Haley Stevens. So I was traveling back and forth and then also doing that remotely. But every year since then, I've either had an internship, a part-time job, or a full-time job somewhere in Lansing. But I knew coming out here that I went to MSU because of the capital and because of the proximity.
Tell me what internships you've done.
So I have done the House Democratic Fund. So that's the fundraising arm of the House Democrats here. I did the state Senate. I did their communications. So the communications for all of their members. I did interning at a lobbying firm originally that turned into a full-time job. Capital Strategies Group, downtown Lansing. And after that, I went over to the State House, where I now have my full-time job.
And what do you do there?
So I'm the Constituent Services Director for Representative Jason Morgan from Ann Arbor.
Then always on the Democratic side.
Yeah, I have always been on the Democratic side, and you can't really waffle back and forth because once they see on your resume that you went from one to the other, they get a little fishy, so you can't. Even if there's an opportunity on the other side.
Didn't David Gergens work for both presidents on the Democrat and Republican?
Yeah. I think if you could, some people can make it work, but
Right.
by and large, it's kind of a red flag for a lot of higher
When did you and how did you develop like your democratic
values.
or loyalty or?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think it kind of started really when I was in high school, like I mentioned, when I went to the Democratic Club meeting for the first time. My family I come from a very conservative family personally, religiously and socially. And
Politically?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So grew up with like Fox News on the TV in the mornings, those kinds of things, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, those kinds of pundits. And I kind of just agreed with everything they said because that's what I was exposed to. And then when I got into high school, I think that was the time where a lot of those views are challenged because you're in this environment where people are coming of age, they have a lot of opinions, they're trying to figure out what they stand for, what they believe in. And I got involved in my high school's debate club. And that's where I kind of really explored those Democratic versus Republican values more. And I found that I aligned more with Democratic values, so kind of took it from there.
And that's not easy to do.
No, it's not.
Even for a potentially small household or a big household, is to say I'm a Democrat if you're surrounded by a bunch of conservatives, right?
I don't know, it was harder coming out as a Democrat or as gay. It was a.
And when did you do that?
I was 16, so right around the same time, actually. So it was a good whiplash, back and forth.
I mean, it's an interesting aspect, one that I'm not necessarily familiar with, but at a time that would have been, just 5 years ago, right? So
yeah, 5 or 6 now.
Fresh in your mind, and it's not easy to do, right? To tell maybe your mom and your dad, or how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, it was interesting. There's no playbook. There's not like a guidebook on how to do it, and every family's different. So I think with mine coming from a really conservative background, it was kind of hard threading that needle. Right. My grandparents were Catholics. My parents went to Catholic high schools, very strict religious.
Being a Catholic, a strict religion, or I thought on Friday it's like a get even. Most people are like Kennedy Catholics, they like the idea of the affiliation, but
I think that's where they're at now. I think
Kennedy Catholic
now. Yeah, but back then they were like, whatever. Yeah, they thought they were saving the world. But yeah, it's kind of it came to a point where I was comfortable with myself and I wanted my family to be comfortable with me. And I started with my mom and came out to my mom first. She was pretty accepting. And then I knew that was going to be the easiest one. So then I went to my dad and then my dad's family, and that's when it ran into a little bit of trouble.
Interesting. I can understand why, you're not sure what would be harder, coming out gay or coming out Democrat.
Yeah.
It's a double whammy. And your mom was relatively conservative too?
So she was a liberal originally, and then she became conservative during the Trump era, so when Trump first started running.
Oh, okay.
So she's like that case study where it's like the double Obama voter turned Trump voter.
Right, I got you.
Yeah.
So you're here at Michigan State, right?
Yep. Well,
and
graduated now, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you're involved, working, studying, getting pretty good grades, right?
Yeah.
And you said you were on the debate team in high school.
Yep.
But at Michigan State, not a lot of, even at James Madison, most of it is reading and writing, right?
Reading and writing, but a lot of the 25% of my grades in every one of my classes was in-class participation and debating. So a lot of that is kind of fostering that environment where you challenge each other's perspectives, which I think has really kind of helped me to this point to be able to understand where other people come from.
21 or 20, are you 22?
22 now, yep.
So you're very articulate. Like,
Thanks.
I mean, you have an ability to talk in a way. I wish I was like that at 22. I wasn't even close. And it's sort of a unique attribute to have. It's very positive. And, it can make, an otherwise average student sound much more smarter than they are. And you are above average, so way above average. So, tell me how you, like, what do you attribute your ability to speak on topic? And, you know, there's a beginning and a middle and an end. And, you know, you sort of hit the high points when you answer a question, or your delivery is, you know, really excellent.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, a lot of that came from debate was good, but it's also my political experiences that I've had. A lot of those have attributed. So, for example, like when we were doing, it seems very distant, but it's connected. When we were doing call time for different candidates, I did call time management for a couple.
So tell me what that is.
So it's basically when candidates get on the phone and they're like, okay, you know, they have a list of people that they're going to try to ask money for call time. So that's, you know, what we call it. There's always a beginning, a middle, and end.
You need the heavy hitter to come in and make the call, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if it's a staff person asking for money, it's not the same.
It's not going to resonate. Yeah.
It's not the same as Debbie Stabenow calls, or Alyssa Slotkin, or Governor
Whitmer. Yeah. So there's always when you're doing those calls, there's always a beginning, a middle, and the end. And part of that is what I did on the back end was the research. So trying to gather the background data on who that person is, if they have kids, where they're from, what their interests are, those kinds of things. So you build almost a story before you get on the phone with them. And then you present that to the candidate who's running and making the calls. So there's the beginning where, you know, you're talking about yourself, you're asking about their kids, about their wife, you know, what they're doing, how their vacation was, because you saw on Facebook they were in Aruba 2 weeks ago. And then there's the middle where you make that ask, where you're like, hey, you know, I'm running for this position, I need $1,000. And then there's the end where, you know, you're saying, you know, I'll talk to you soon, hope you're doing well, let's circle back, let's grab coffee sometime. So it's kind of like that beginning, middle, and end started there because I crafted those stories literally for candidates to call. And then as time went on and I became more social myself, you know, in James Madison classes, a lot of those helped me to kind of develop those skills further. And that's because so much of the classwork was dedicated to debating and having differences of opinion and supporting those.
Right, because if somebody else, even you might write the story, there's a lot of good writers that aren't good speakers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a separate skill set.
It is.
Somewhat related, but
yeah,
they're not necessarily, just because you're good at one doesn't mean you're good at the other.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like myself, I think I'm better at speaking than I am at writing. But for a lot of people, it's the other way around because they have the time to sit and look and think it over. But for me, it's almost like that's the opposite effect, because then I start tripping myself up. I look at it too many times. I edit it into oblivion, and then it sounds like garbage by the end of the time that I'm done with it. It's almost more natural if I'm just talking and, you know, thinking about what I want to say in the moment. And political theory in James Madison is one of the most bipartisan majors, actually. So there's the most diversity in terms of like conservative versus liberal values.
In students,
yeah.
What about the professors?
They really make it hard for you to figure out what they are, which is good.
That's good.
It's good. There's a couple that I've kind of like sussed out and kind of figured it out. But there's some that I've had 2 years and as a professor, and I never figured it out.
Not a lot of them show up in a blue suit and a blue tie and a white shirt, do they?
Not like you, no, but not the amazing tie you got there.
So you're at Michigan State, and it's it's post pandemic, right? And it's the Biden era, right? And you know, a lot going on not only at Michigan State but in East Lansing and the national, right?
Yeah,
it's you know, I guess a good time to be in politics if that's your thing.
It is. I mean, part of the reason that I got involved too was because of all the what I saw was divisiveness happening at the national level. I was like, there's just so much happening. Like, I want to try to be a part of that conversation to try to make things better. I'm only 22, but you know, I think at this point in time, I've made a really positive impact, at least on people my age. You know, through the efforts that I've done leading the Democratic Club at Michigan State University, you know.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You leave the Northville Democrats, right?
Yeah. I started my high school Democratic Club too. So we had a high school chapter.
And how many people were in that?
About 30, which for high schoolers, that's a lot. Yeah.
And then you come to Michigan State and they had a Democratic club,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So the Democratic Club of Michigan State has been running for decades.
Right.
You know, Curtis Hertel, for example, was a chair of the
Yeah.
MSU Dems.
I think we're trying to get him on the show, aren't we, Steven? Anyway.
Let me know if you need help with that. Yeah, so like the history has been really deep with them. They've been running for years, and I got involved my freshman year. So I was a member my freshman year. I ran for leadership my sophomore year when I became director of social media. And then
tell me what year that would have been, 22?
That would have been, 22, 23.
Okay.
And then my junior year, which was 23, 24, I was the vice president. And then 24, 25, I was president, which was during the presidential election in 24.
Right, and then and 22 or 23 was the governor's election.
Yeah, so that was really exciting too, and we did a lot of the efforts on campus and in the East Lansing area to organize students and turn them out to vote.
And Slotkin ran in all those, right, and had very heated contested races, and was always worried about the student vote because, you know, a big portion of the 8th district was in a conservative Livingston County.
Yeah, the congressional district, the 7th district is super, if you go outside of Ingham County, it's actually quite conservative.
Yeah, it used to be the 8th, now it's the 7th.
Yeah, yeah. So really, East Lansing, if you don't win East Lansing and if you don't turn out students to vote, you can kiss the election goodbye. Like, you're not going to win it because in 24 and 22, you know, you're getting 3, 4, 5,000 just on campus student votes.
Right.
And that can be your margin of error right there. So it depends really on how many students you can turn out.
And you were instrumental in getting people involved in the Democratic Club at Michigan State.
Yeah. So during the presidential election cycle, we grew to become the largest chapter of college Democrats in America. We had 450 members, knocked 20,000 doors, had 45 of our members get part or full-time employment in politics and organizing, which is honestly one of the things that I'm most proud of, is like getting these people directly engaged and helping out candidates or working in the causes that they believe in.
Engagement is probably a telltale sign directly that people are going to participate in the process.
Because going to a rally or whatever is, you know, it's fun, whatever, cool, but it's not really, you're not taking the next step. You know, you're not advocating for something. You're just showing up to an event with a bunch of like-minded people, which isn't going to change anyone's mind.
Right. Could be just for the music.
It's pretty, some of it's,
So then you graduate, right?
Yep, just graduated.
And you get a job working for?
I started in October, so it's been almost a year. I worked for State Representative Jason Morgan.
Okay, so you started before you graduated.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. It was kind of, looking back at it, an insane choice of mine, considering the presidential election was November, and I started a new full-time job in October when I was doing 60-plus hours a week for the MSU Democratic Club, for free, obviously. And yeah, I mean, I just went in head first, and I've been there ever since, and I love it. You know, this is my first time really being full-time employed in the state, in the state government. And I found that I like state government more than national, just because I feel like you can more tangibly feel the effects of the policy that is at the state level.
Worked in D.C. yet, though, right?
I have not. No. I've worked for federal candidates, but I haven't actually worked in, D.C.
D.C. is a great town.
It is great, yeah.
But tell me what district he has.
So he has District 23, which is Ann Arbor, South Lyon, Northville area. Okay. So actually my dad is just right near his district in Northville Township. So
okay.
Yeah.
And what do you do there?
So I'm his, what they call in Lansing, the front desk, which is constituent services. So I'm doing anything front facing. So that's social media, that's scheduling, that's getting him to and from places, that's planning events and staffing him at them, doing media requests and interviews, those kinds of things.
How do you like that job?
I love it. He's a great guy to work for. He's young. He's also a member of the LGBTQ community. Like, he's a great idol for me, someone to look up to. And he's taught me a lot over the last year or so that I've worked there.
And tell me where the office is.
So it's in downtown Lansing. It's the House office building, which is right across the street from the Capitol. So our window looks at the Capitol.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
And you get that view every day.
It's great. I love it.
And where do you park?
The Townsend ramp. They take $30 out of your paycheck, every paycheck, just to park a mile down the street. So I got to walk all the way down there. It's a pain in the ass in the winter.
And you obviously don't live downtown.
No, not in Lansing. I live in East Lansing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an important point, right?
It is an important point. Good segue.
Because you decided you didn't have enough to do.
Yeah, I wanted to attend more meetings, so I was like, why not city council?
Okay. And what's your interest in East Lansing City Council?
Yeah, I mean, so when I graduated, I was like, all right, the MSU Democratic Club took so much of my time and my energy, and I wanted to figure out how I could positively impact not just students, but the whole community. I sat down with a couple of my mentors and talked about, what's next and if I'm going to stay in East Lansing or if I'm going to go somewhere else. And, I was leaning towards staying towards East Lansing because I love this community. Michigan State really shaped me to become who I am today. After talking with some of my mentors, I decided that I wanted to kind of run for something else and kind of give back to the community. I ran for president of the Democratic Club, and now I'm kind of running for something else. And it's really exciting to me. I want to give back. I want to stay here and encourage other young professionals to immerse themselves here and grow and develop. Because I think, our population, frankly, in East Lansing is aging. If you look at the census data, young people are staying and the population's aging because of it. And because of the housing crisis, not just here, but nationally, young families can't afford to move here. So they're moving to Meridian or they're moving to Lansing.
Hazlitt,
DeWitt. So
I know Lansing could use all the people they can get, but East Lansing's a great place to live.
It is.
When you say a crisis, housing crisis, what do you mean by that?
So it's really an issue of high interest rates. It's an issue of affordability, really.
Right.
In East Lansing, you can't really find a single family home for less than $300,000 unless it's in disrepair. And frankly, I can't live in East Lansing without roommates. Granted, I work for the state, and the state doesn't pay a lot, but a lot of young folks who are moving here, the median income is, $80,000, $90,000. They can't necessarily afford a $300,000 mortgage. And I think that's discouraging a lot of people from moving in a community where they want to be. So they're forced to live in a community just outside where they can maybe get that same house. If you look at, the east side of Lansing compared to East Lansing, that US 127, you can put the exact same house on one side or the other, and it'll be $50,000 less in Lansing.
What can you do about that?
So really,
what could city council do about that?
So it's a couple of things. So one thing is not adding more property taxes on, because that makes living here not only your mortgage, but on top of that, we have some of the highest property taxes in the area. And on this ballot in 2025, they're trying to add 2 more millages onto the property taxes.
For what?
Parks and Recreation, which we can get into that in a minute. But it's the millages, it's increasing the supply, so being pro-development, having more housing. Really what it means is building more student housing, so more high-rises. That gives more diversity of options for students to choose from, and also more affordability because there's more supply. And with that development, eventually some of those single-family houses that are being occupied by students will eventually kind of shift more towards the high-rise rentals, because more students, I can tell from someone who recently just graduated, they're living in those houses not because it's super desirable. They're actually haven't been repaired in a couple years. It's a student house, so they're not going to be in super great condition.
Right.
They would rather pay $200 more a month to live in a high-rise that has their own bedroom, bathroom, and closet, and that has a gym and a pool, and is secured. So kind of encouraging that development. We have prime space in the high transit areas downtown to build that. So incentivizing those developments will eventually kind of alleviate some of the strain on the housing supply. because we don't have a lot of open green space left in East Lansing unless you hit the northern tier. If you head towards Abbott and Lake Lansing, and then you go to that area up there.
Evergreen spot is
Evergreen is downtown. That's where it's prime for that development. Right. There could be hundreds of units that could go right there. Whether that's workforce or affordable or student housing or a blend of all the above.
So housing is one issue on your horizon. What else?
So housing's an issue. Collaboration with the university is a really big one. Somebody who just graduated there and was involved with, the political process at the university. I met a lot of the power players there. So President Gustowitz, the MSU trustees, the government relations folks at MSU, I've made those connections, and they've been really helpful. And they're great people. And a lot of them want to work with the city more, but the city has kind of blocked out the university because of stuff that's happened in the past. So they haven't had a formal meeting with each other in about 2 years now. They have their liaisons that kind of liaise between, but in terms of the president and the trustees and then the mayor and the council, they haven't met formally in 2 years. And I think that has created this void.
What issues can they work together on?
A lot. So, anything that is downtown related, for example. During the school year, East Lansing exists because of the university, right? So all those people are patronizing, all those students are patronizing the restaurants, the bars, the businesses downtown. The two exist in a symbiotic relationship, the university and the city. And I think that a lot of the folks in the city don't recognize that because they are either anti-student or they don't like, the traffic and the hubbub, for example. But I think it's important to realize that they can contribute a lot to each other. So whether that's helping develop downtown more, whether that's enforcing public safety, the MSU police force has 80 officers while we have about 40 in the city of East Lansing, and their police budget is massive compared to ours.
They've got more resources.
They do. They have a lot more resources at their disposal.
Police department than most, probably. Maybe more than Lansing, believe it or not.
Probably, yeah. So it's having those partnerships and fostering those partnerships. Maybe we could, and I've heard this when I've been knocking on doors and talking to people, is having the MSU PD creating a contract with them where they come downtown and they help police downtown so that the rest of the East Lansing police are able to kind of patrol the neighborhoods and some of the not immediate downtown areas. Because a lot of folks in these neighborhoods, whether it's White Hills or whether it's Marble or whatever, they're complaining because there's no police presence in their area. There's people that are doing 35 in their neighborhoods and running through stop signs and blowing through intersections and those kinds of things. So a lot of people are frustrated by that, and it's because there's a lack of supply and a lack of enforcement. And I think working with the university is a first step in kind of solving that issue. So I think that's another way that the city and the university can work well together.
What else is on the horizon for your agenda?
Otherwise, it's addressing the budget. So we're running a $3 million structural deficit year over year. This stuff is just riveting, I know.
How do you, they're required to run a balanced budget, right?
Yeah, they are. So in about 2 or 3 years, if they keep running at the spending rate that they are, their credit rate gets downgraded. And then it becomes harder for us to borrow. It becomes harder for us to do business. And eventually the city will go bankrupt if we keep running at the current spending rate. So the current proposal is to the point of that millage that I talked about earlier, to basically cut out the Parks and Recreation funding from the city budget, which is about $3 million, believe it or not. And that 2 millages would be a Parks and Recreation's millage. The reason that a lot of people
take it out of the general budget and just put it on
a specific carve out for a millage for Parks and Recreation. The problem with that, and now why a lot of people are frustrated about it, is because the income tax that the city passed in 2019 was by and large supposed to support public safety, paying down the pensions, and the Parks and Recreation program. So now that the city is coming back a couple years later and saying we need more money, people are like, but you just did that, and we're one of the only cities that have a local income tax. Oh, and by the way, we have some of the highest millage rates in the area. So I think a lot of people think it's a little disingenuous, and I think the reason that it's really on the budget is because generationally, there's been quite a few missteps when it comes to the budget. 20 years ago, they massively expanded the Parks and Recreations Department, and they added multiple parks, and it's great. And I love the services that we have here in the city of East Lansing, but they didn't carve out long-term investment plans for when those buildings and those facilities start to age, which is now. So a lot of maintenance is due, roofs need to be repaired, foundations need to be repaired, and we don't have the money for it. So now we're kind of facing either people pay more in property taxes or you have no parks.
Why would anybody want to do that job?
Do what job?
City council with all these issues, right?
Yeah, no, but that's kind of the thing is I love this community and I want to see it be better than it is now.
What do you think of downtown East Lansing?
I think it's promising and it has potential. And I think there has been a couple of generations of councils that have been very hesitant on development. Whether that's the evergreen properties that have been owned by the DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, for the last almost 20 years now, whether that's property just north of downtown, or whether that's the city hall and putting a new development there. There's a lot of prime area for development. It could be building on top of the 2 stories that are along Grand River, like how we have what's it called, the Landmark on top of the Target there. I think downtown is great, but it has potential to be so much more. It's very spread out. We're one of the only Big Ten college towns that has kind of a crappy downtown in terms of offerings and being kind of the place to be.
Right.
It's really just during the school year, it's students. During the summer, the locals come out and they're patronizing, and that's about it.
Would you be open to development going as far north as Bertram?
Yeah, I'd be
from Albert to Bertram, that sort of, along Mac, and because that's really, if you're trying to build or grow your downtown, you either go east-west on Grand River, right?
Yeah.
Or you go north sort of on MAC, and
I think right now what we're looking at is not necessarily going further east and west, because we already have this really interesting system where our downtown is very long and narrow, and it takes 30 minutes to get from one end to the other. And I think what we should be focusing on is building up and being more dense instead of trying to spread out more, because I think that's going to cause, less people to want to go all the way down here to Hagedorn or all the way down here to Harrison, because they just want to be right downtown in the middle.
So at some point you decide you're going to run for city council, right?
Yep.
And how do you make that decision?
Yeah. It was really after I met, I said,
you graduated in May, right? Of 25
May
this
of 25,
year. And so it had to have been right around, when was the filing deadline?
Filing deadline was July, end of July 22nd, if I recall.
Just closed.
Yeah, so May was right around the time that I graduated, actually. So right after I graduated is when I decided that I wanted to. Because for me, I'm a bit of a busybody. I like to keep myself on my toes. I like to make sure that I'm trying to do as many things as possible while, developing myself and my career and helping others around me. So the fact that I didn't have school on my plate anymore, the fact that I didn't have the MSU Democratic Club on my plate anymore, I was like, I just have a job now. I have a job, and then I'm the vice chair of the Ingham County Dems. So it's like I had these 2 things. So I'm like, all right, what's next? Because I want to be productive in society, and I don't want to just sit around and watch Netflix all day.
Why city council? I mean, you could have looked at other races, right?
I could have. I could have looked at, for example, like county commission, or I could have looked at, serving on a committee or something like that. But I think council for me, I realized how much influence council has at the local level. And that's part of the reason, like I said earlier, why I like working in state government, is I like working at the local level where you can tangibly, really positively impact people's lives.
Politics is grassroots, right?
Yeah, politics is grassroots. I think it starts from the bottom up.
Politics is local.
Yeah.
What do you think, in that regard, what do you think about downtown Lansing? So not really a part of your bailiwick, but you work down there, right?
Yeah. I work down there, patronize businesses.
You don't have a long-term, life experience about downtown, but and certainly East Lansing and Lansing, they have to work together to some degree.
They currently don't.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. I think from the time that I've been here, the last 4.5, 5 years now, I've seen it develop a lot.
Oops.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I've seen downtown Lansing develop a lot, whether that's kind of the Washington Square area or downtown retail. I think it's not anywhere near where it used to be. And I think, unfortunately, that's just because of the new work environment. You know, a lot of the state workers are now hybrid or remote, or they only work in office 1 or 2 days a week. And a lot of the people that are patronizing those businesses downtown were state workers.
Historically, you know, you could make a living off of the state workers during the day, and then we had an entertainment district, and really it turned on to some degree even something as weird as Cooley contracting. You know, it really killed the downtown life there.
It did. I mean, now we have that new high rise that's going in. It's going to be a bunch of workforce housing, which I think is great, because when I talk to a lot of my fellow staffers in the House and the Senate, a lot of these people live back in district because it's too expensive to live. They want to live in East Lansing, or they want to live in this area. And I think that development, with a lot of it being workforce housing and being, you know, tied to the income rate that the state is paying, I think that'll draw a lot of people to actually stay here, and then hopefully keep those businesses not busy only during the day, but also during the nighttime too, because people are staying here, they're working here. So I think Mayor Andy Shore is on the right track with trying to develop the city, and also kind of, you know, eliminating some of the excess, because there's just an excess of buildings now. I mean, there's too much. There's not as much of a demand for the office and the retail space that there once was. We're in a new era of cafe commercialism, where people do all their shopping online, and really the only thing that they're going in person for is big box stores and restaurants and bars.
Costco seems to have it figured out. The Apple store seems to have it figured out. But
But those are like the major consumer goods. You know, people want to buy an iPhone in person because they can feel it in their hands. They want to go to Costco in person because, frankly, getting a whole tub full of candy delivered is probably going to cost more than it would to just go.
You don't know what you need until you walk in there, right?
Exactly. And what would it be without the samples? Right?
So you decide almost at about the time you graduate that you're going to run.
Yep.
What was that process like as far as the actual filing?
Yeah. Actual filing is kind of a disaster. So you basically, what you do is you create your statement of organization through the county. So that's where you go to the county and you say, hey, I plan on running, and that allows you to basically start bringing in money. And then at that point, you have to collect signatures to get on the ballot. So you have to collect a minimum 50, maximum 100, which in this area is not hard. You know, you can do that in 2 or 3 days, talk to some of your neighbors, pull them in. The thing is I collected all of them, I turned them in, and then there was a clerical error on the clerk's end, so that I had to recollect all of my signatures. And mind you, it was the 19th. They were doing the 22nd. So I had just the weekend. I had Saturday and Sunday because I turned them in on Friday. I had just Saturday and Sunday to recollect all my signatures because I had collected 90 the first time around. Turned them in Monday morning. I had 120. So I actually turned in more the second time around than I did the first time. And that was really...
That's somebody that really wants to run.
It kind of proves the dedication.
Or you can't read the signs.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah. It's basically across the top. There's a line that says to be elected on the primary date of... There's no primary. It's only a general election in East Lansing. So basically what they wanted me to do was cross out the word primary and write the general date on there. But...
I got you. And so, and they couldn't do it after the fact because the voters had read what you presume that they read what's on there, and therefore it's a sort of a misrepresentation on the on what they're signing.
Even though they're still signing a document that says primary date on it, or putting a general, but
nobody actually reads it, right?
No, they may look at the name, and that's about it. They just look at their signature, and half the time they forget which one says the name of the signature, and they get it confused. So.
You file, you get everything filed.
Yep.
Now you got to run a general election, right?
Yep. So November 4th.
And there aren't districts in East Lansing, right?
No, they're all at large. And I think that's something that I would like to tackle. Something that I'm interested in exploring more, and that I've talked to a lot of people about in East Lansing, is creating kind of similar to what Lansing and Ann Arbor have, which is having districts. We're one of the only cities of our size in the state that have only at-large seats.
So you've got to run you got to run to represent everyone,
which I think is great. it's a good thing, but we have so many distinct neighborhoods, and we have the university, and we have like Bailey neighborhood compared to White Hills. It's completely different. You know, the interests are different. It's proximity to campus, whatever. So these areas are statistically and geographically a lot different, and I think exploring the option of doing districts would be a really interesting idea. And also with that comes expanding the council too. We have a 5-member council, which is proportionally very small compared to the rest of the state. There's been a push for multiple years now to have it be 7, and that's because...
Can you do that by vote of council, or is it
It's vote of council to add the language to the ballot, so it has to be an amendment to charter. So that would
up to the voters.
Yep. So say I get elected, we get that language on. It could be on the ballot as soon as 26 during the midterms.
And you'd go from 5 to 7.
5 to 7, and then in my mind, I would like to have
longer meetings.
Longer meetings, yeah, longer meetings, which is fine because the reason expanding the council is important is because it needs more representation in terms of more voices at the table, 1. But 2, if one person can't make it, one council member can't make it to the meeting, it fundamentally skews the vote on any
20%.
issue. Yeah. So having 7 gives it a little bit more of a buffer so that you're able to actually have people have their lives and because at the end of the day, these council positions are intended to be part-time. You know, they're not paying a salary that you can live on full-time. You're getting $8,000 or $9,000 a year, which is really, you know, you can't live off of that. So I think treating the position as such and recognizing the fact that people have to have other jobs and have other commitments too means that you need to have enough members there so that 1 or 2 people from time to time, if they need to attend to other engagements, they can.
So you get your filing in, right?
Yeah.
And now you have to run a campaign, right?
Yep.
You have to raise money.
Yep.
And you have to, put together a plan. Right?
Yeah.
And share with us how you go about doing both of those.
Yeah. So really my experience in terms of the past campaign work that I've done for local, state, and congressional races has really helped me a lot to be able to do a lot of the elements of a campaign myself and internally rather than having to hire consultants or somebody else to do it for me. And consultants they can be great and they can be helpful, but they're also come with a price tag,
Right.
and in a local race where you're only raising $15,000 to $20,000, you don't have a lot of money to spend. You got to be thrifty. So doing as much of that work in house is really helpful. So really, what I started with was out the gate was fundraising. In any campaign, you want to start with fundraising first because you got to get your infrastructure rolling. That means making prints, doing your yard signs, getting your literature, calling voters and fundraisers and bundlers and donors and those sorts of things. So right out the gate, I filed. I started raising money. I had a fundraiser, brought some of the attention and money into the door, and then I got all my stuff printed. Had all of that out the gate. And then the next step is knocking on doors, talking to people. I've knocked on 1,500 doors so far. The goal is to hit 10,000 before the end of the election. I have about 30 people who are helping volunteer, whether they're union.
That's a lot of people.
It is. Whether it's family or union members or friends or students at the university. Really what I'm doing is a dual-pronged approach. So the city and the university is each side of that prong. So the city, I have some folks that are some adults and more older folks that are helping knock in the downtown areas. And then at the university, I have a bunch of my friends and MSU Dem members because I'm still connected with them. So a lot of them are going to be going from dorm to dorm, doing what we call dorm storming, and dropping off literature with information about me, when to vote, registering to vote, all of that. So having 2 of those approaches is really important because having the typical East Lansing resident turnout is important, but that student turnout is just as important, if not more, because that can be your win margin right there. And typically in an election, an off-year election, there's only about 20 to 30 students on campus that vote in an off-year election.
Really?
Yeah.
20 to 30?
20 to 30. There's been years where there's been single digits.
Wow.
It's sad. And that's just because there's not the city doesn't engage enough with the students on campus. Maybe off campus they do, but not on campus.
And maybe because they don't care about local politics as much as they care about the national politics.
And that's the thing, is part of the reason that I'm running too, and what I did at the MSU Democratic Club, we started when I was a junior, the vice president, we started the engagement on the local level. So we, for the first time, held a town hall for East Lansing City Council candidates. And we had great turnout in terms of our members there. And people were excited because they wanted to hear what was going on here locally. It wasn't as much as a presidential debate would turn out, obviously. But people have started to get engaged, and it's really just reminding them as to why these local races are important. It's getting more businesses downtown and more restaurants and bars that you want to go to. It's getting you better options and more affordable options in terms of housing. The president can't really do that at the flip of a switch. On the local level, we can say, yeah, we want to build this new development, and cool. That's in 2 years' time, it'll be up.
What do you think? Some of the criticism, obviously, your age, right?
Sure.
And how do you address that?
Yeah, I think it's. Ever since I walked into that room, the Northfield Democratic Club back in when I was 15, and everyone looked at me as if I was, a child, which I was. I'm not unaware of the fact that I'm young, and I'm very used to the comments and sometimes the criticisms. And how I respond to it is, I have dedicated myself and made it this far after only about 6 or 7 years. And I think that a lot of the folks that have been on council in the past, that have been here for generations and years, and use that age as something that they put under their belt, will look at all the missteps that the city has had over the last couple of years, and who's been running it. Older folks, people who have been here for years, people who have been doing those council positions for years. So in this situation, does age really bring wisdom? Or do you need more diverse and fresh voices on that council that want to drive the city forward instead of keeping things as the status quo?
You'll have an election on what day?
November 4th. And ballots start going out end of September, though, for absentee.
And how many people are running?
6 candidates for 2 spots. So it's top 2 vote getters.
And in East Lansing, we sort of have what I'll call a soft mayor.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Soft mayoral.
And a strong city manager.
Correct.
And in Lansing, they have a strong mayor and fairly strong city council.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Well, what do you think is the best form?
I think I prefer strong mayoral just because I think it gives a little bit more accountability because the person who is elected is leading the city. In this case, the city manager is not elected. They're appointed and chosen by the council. So I think sometimes it can create that lack of accountability that we've kind of seen in the past with East Lansing, is that some of the city managers have come and go because they haven't been accountable to the voters. And I think when you're leading a city with the reputation and the size that East Lansing has, I would be interested in seeing what it's like to, have a strong mayoral system instead. That's going to be a lot of work.
That would be a full-time job, right?
Full-time job, and that would be really restructuring kind of some of that top-level government. But it would be interesting just to explore that idea and see where voters feel on that. I would love to put it on the ballot, and if it fails, then people don't like it. But if they do like it, then let's explore it and let's go for it.
What do you think about, or what's your position on public safety?
Position on public safety is that, I think we have an enforcement problem in East Lansing. During COVID and kind of in some of the recent years, we've had, a lot of the East Lansing Police Department that has been kind of stripped of their abilities to enforce downtown. I think accountability is always important, and police should always be held accountable. So whether that's body cams or, having oversight of some kind, I think that's important. But being able to do your job, too, is also equally important. And over time, we've seen the police force be reduced in size. And I think, when we're getting less and less support from, university public safety, and we have to kind of step up more and more to the plate, it's difficult because we're trying to balance having a crappy budget that we can't balance right now and having a good, strong police force that is accountable. And I think that means we have to really kind of look internally. We have to figure out what priorities we want in terms of the budget. So I think that means having more communications with people in the community and saying, hey, what cuts can we make that would impact you the least? And simultaneously, it's also where can we develop downtown that you would like to see developed? Because expanding the tax base is the easiest answer to this problem. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's not an instant fix. So there might need to be some short-term cuts that are made. But in the long term, 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, our tax base grows immensely. We can grow the Parks and Rec department. We can grow the public safety department. We can grow the fire department, all those kinds of things.
Right, because historically, at least we may be on the other side, but it seemed like downtown was a little cowboys and Indians down there. And,
yeah.
And maybe a little bit in the public East Lansing High School as well. And, I heard the rumors. Some of it was validated. A lot of people, wouldn't put their kids in East Lansing School. I mean, I think that's slightly behind us. And I know the school district's not your issue, but it's still it's still a matter of public safety, right?
It is, and I think it is part of the conversation too, because those high schoolers and those middle and elementary school students are still residents and they still live here, and that's we don't oversee directly the schools, but making sure that they are good institutions is part of our goal as well, and that's also having good connections with the superintendent and good connections with the school board members and making sure that we're being helpful in any ways that we can. I've heard that there's been some frustration from the school district with the city council and with the city leadership. So maybe that some of those relationships need to be repaired. And looking at ways that we can support public safety in schools, ways that we can support mental health funding and access to good quality education is really important to me. I was at MSU when we had that shooting 2.5 years ago now.
Right.
And that was terrifying to me. I was right downtown. And I don't wish that upon anyone. And I think that means that we need to have good safety measures in our schools. So that means having a public or a police resource officer, so someone who is there full-time, day in, day out. My high school in Northville had one, and I think it was great. We came to know that officer, we came to like them, and they sat with us at lunch, and they made those connections because they weren't, at the end of the day, they knew they weren't just there to have a taser and a gun on them. They were there to also make those connections and be a role model for students. And I think that's important. I think it's a good, strong figure to look up to, and I think it's something that makes people feel safer at the end of the day. So,
well, believe it or not, that's an hour.
Wow.
Have we covered all your topics there?
I think so. It was a good comprehensive cover, but I'm a bit of a yapper, so I probably could have gone on for a little bit.
You were great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andrew.
Yeah, you were great.